This is the Forbes Books Podcast, conversations with amazing humans who are impacting the world of business and beyond. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and they say no two entrepreneurs' journey are alike. Richard Branson was inspired to start Virgin Airlines after a flight he was set to board was abruptly canceled. While selling fax machines door-to-door, Sarah Blakely struggled to eliminate annoying panty lines whenever she wore light-colored slacks, so she created Spanx. And Ralph Lauren was working as a sales assistant at Brooks Brothers when he started to wonder if men were interested in branching out into more colorful, bolder ties. Well, my guest this week was inspired to start her company after she was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder that dramatically impacted her health and went on a strict whole foods, plant-based diet that improved her condition. Her name is Kerry Song. She's the founder of Abbot's, formerly known as Abbot's Butcher, a wellness company that crafts delicious and versatile plant-rich products from real whole food ingredients. We're going to talk about that wild journey, the plant-based food industry, and the next chapter of the Abbott story. Kerry, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
You're very welcome. And you know what's crazy about your career, Kerry? Because it would be impossible to do a podcast about the number of jobs and lives you've had. I mean, it would literally have to be like a Netflix 10-part documentary. You've done so much in a short amount of time. Like, I've been like a radio guy and podcast my whole life. That's it. I'm pretty basic. But my Lord, you have so many layers on top of who you are now as a founder and CEO of Abbott's Butcher. So someone were to walk up to you and not know like the Kerry Song story, how would you explain who you are to somebody outside of being the founder of a really successful company?
That's a good question. But no, I mean, it certainly wasn't a linear path to where I'm at now. Many different industries, I mean, from finance and then marketing, worked for Tony Robbins, worked for Citigroup, Morgan Stanley. But really, I think ultimately I was just trying to find something that felt very purposeful and that really aligned with a lot of my values and my mission. It took me a while to figure that out. I mean, to be totally frank with you, when I graduated from college, I was broke. You have investment banks that come to your school. So I thought this is a good opportunity for me to go and move to New York. A lot of my school moved to New York. So go live there for a while and do the analyst program at Citigroup and try to like figure out, hey, is this a path that I want to go down? I mean, I was a graduate with an economics major. So it felt like the natural next move, but it was very clear after a few years, that's not really the direction I wanted to go. And so I sort of took a hiatus, moved to Europe and traveled around by myself for a while, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Moved back to Los Angeles. I'm from Southern California originally. Got back into writing and eventually started working as a copywriter, which moved to content strategy, and then worked for Tony Robbins for a while in brand.
Wow. Unbelievable. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's like I said, you did a great job of recapping it there, but it's exhausting to like read back and see everything you've accomplished. I don't know how you pulled it off, but God bless you. And one of the things you mentioned about the fact that along your journey, you accumulate all this knowledge. And I think what's interesting that I find it is a pretty solid trait for successful entrepreneurs. It's being multifaceted. It's not being the subject matter expert. You've been around long enough. I've been around long enough. People that are like a subject matter expert and become CEOs, they usually just kind of fail because they do that one thing well and have trouble doing all these other things. But you come to founding your company with all of these skills. You've got the marketing side. You got the finance side. So how do you think all those, and to borrow the Steve Jobs line of like, how do you think all those dots connected to you to become a successful founder? Because I feel like you needed all of that. You needed that life that we talked about, that exhausting timeline of your life to become who you are today.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it. So thanks. It was never intentional. I never set out to like be an entrepreneur or, examine the industry and look for the white space and create a business that I could then scale. It was never like that. It happened so organically. I was diagnosed with a really serious autoimmune disorder in 2010 and was really sick for about 3 years, in and out of the hospital on an infusion medication, which was an immunosuppressant. So lost half my hair, lost 30 pounds, just was really like a shadow of myself for a really long time. And doctors were telling me you're going to be on this medication the rest of your life, which was terrifying. And so I just dove into research and I thought, what can I do to support my immune system? And the more I learned about my immune system, the more I learned about the importance of gut health and your microbiome. And the more I learned about your microbiome, all roads led to diet. And I started to look at the food that I was eating, which was, a lot of meat alternatives or dairy alternatives at the time. And I would flip over the package, look at the ingredients, and I would see things like methyl cellulose or maltodextrin or soy isolate or even natural flavors. Like, what the hell are half of these things? Most of these things I can barely pronounce, let alone have any idea what they are. And the more I started to research these ingredients and I saw how inflammatory they were to my system, like, I have to cut these out. This is just junk food. And that's not just true of meat alternatives. That's true of just so many products in the grocery store. There's a massive problem in the food system in America. And I cut all that out. I adopted a whole foods, plant-based diet, but there's only so many lentil loaves and, black bean burgers you can eat before this is not sustainable. So I thought there needs to be a plant protein that has a taste and texture I'm really craving, but is made with ingredients that not only I can trust, but actually nourish my body and help me feel energized and restore vitality. So that's the impetus for Abbot, was just really this own need in my life that I started to find solutions for and then want to share with others. So it was really like a natural segue into this. For me, it just made sense. Looking back now and just everything it took to get the company up and running, I'm like, it's really good. I didn't know how hard it was because I don't think I would have done it. I never wanted to set out to be a founder and entrepreneur.
Wow. It's so funny you said that because the running joke on this podcast, Kerry, is I call entrepreneurs psychopaths. Like, I don't know why they do it to themselves. And you realize afterwards, you post-diagnose, like, oh man, I'm nuts for doing this after everything you did. And so tell me about some of those early steps, because you have the idea, because obviously, the entrepreneur's conundrum, find a problem, fix a problem. The problem was very close to your heart. But then how do you go about scaling it from being like many people across the country, small business owners that have, stands at farmers markets or they sell locally. But how did you grow it from an idea to being available in thousands of supermarkets across the country?
I started really small, and I will say I was, and I still am, I feel like a very risk adverse person. I grew up in a family where there's no, we're not out starting businesses. My father's a doctor, my brother's a doctor, my other brother's a lawyer. So there was always a clear cut path. So I was sort of maybe a little bit of the black sheep here, but I started Abbott's while I was still working for Tony Robbins. So at nights I rented a commercial kitchen space and I would start experimenting, start working with other chefs, start working with, nutritionists, functional wellness practitioners. On weekends, I would actually start selling the products at farmers markets around Southern California. So wake up early on Saturday, schlep all my stuff to the farmers market and sell them. But it was a great experience. And I did it for 2 years, which is just, wow, that's a long time. But 2 years, I did that. And I was able to talk with customers. So not only get their feedback in real time, but talk with them and understand what they wanted, what was missing from their lives. And that really helped me create products that were more customer centric. Because you can think, yeah, this product's the best thing, but someone's always going to come out with something, better, faster, stronger. So how do I really understand what is missing from their lives and then start to create products that can be that solution for them?
Wow. And a random question. What was your cooking ability like in those early days? Were you able to, I know you mentioned you had chefs involved, but were you getting your hands dirty trying to figure out recipes to make these clean non-meat options?
Oh, yeah. So, I love cooking. I love being in the kitchen. I'd fallen in love. So even before, in that interim period where I was moving from finance to marketing, I had gone to Europe and lived in Europe for a while and, went to various cooking schools over there, really just fell in love with the ability to take herbs and spices and vegetables and develop these really savory, just delicious meals. And so I think that actually lent itself a lot to creating these proteins because, not only do we have to figure out how to create that texture and that meaty bite, but also how to develop flavor. How do you make something really have that deep, rich umami flavor? But okay, we're going to use mushrooms and we're going to use herbs and spices to do that. So, that's probably why it took 2 years. Also being at the farmer's market, I look back at that first day and I'm like, wow, that was a terrible product. But over 2 years, it changed dramatically. And I think it was, constant R&D.
That's awesome. You remind me of a past guest I had on the podcast, April Budney. She started the Old Whaling Company from the farmer's market in Charleston, South Carolina, and for years just kind of schlepped the table, filled it up with soaps and candles and stuff, and eventually now it's available in thousands of stores all over the country. I want to talk about that grind, like those 2 years, because April talked about this. On her side, she did it because it was survival. Like she needed to sell these candles and soaps to feed her family. But tell me about the grind that you experienced, just schlepping every Saturday morning to like put your products out there, having the day job, then also preparing the stuff during the week. I mean, it just seems like there was a lot going on in your life at that time.
Yeah, there was a lot. I mean, honestly, it was really exhausting at times, but exhilarating still, because I was so excited about this and believed so passionately that something like this needs to exist. And the more and more I would talk to the customers, and the more I learned about how many people really, really struggle with chronic disease. I mean, 60% of Americans suffer from a chronic illness. That's a crazy amount of people. Wow. More than half people you probably know. And then, not to mention all the people that even have regular, GI distress or even something like IBS. So there's just a lot of people out there where I think the more that they're waking up to this idea is like food is medicine, the more they're going to be opened up to this whole new world of possibilities. And that was just so exciting to me that I think as tired as I was, it didn't feel like work.
What do you think that eureka moment was during that 2 years where like, people like this stuff? Because it's one thing to put your heart and soul into something and make it, but key to entrepreneurship, it's like having people buy that thing. So did it take a while for people to even understand what it was, or was it something that you were kind of in a good area of the country that would be open to buying something like that? When did you receive like pretty positive feedback on the stuff you were making?
I think definitely. I mean, I was in Southern California, so Orange County and Los Angeles, and the folks that go to farmers markets were very open to it. But I think it wasn't honestly until we launched into retail. So after 2 years in the farmers markets, I'm like, okay, I can't be at farmers markets forever. So I don't know a thing about how to get into retail. I didn't even understand what distribution was. I literally I found where the corporate office for Mother's Market was, which is a small chain out here in Southern California. It's like 9 doors. Found where their corporate office was and walked in, asked if I could speak with the buyer. And I think they're so not used to anyone doing that. They were like, yeah, sure. So introduced me to the buyer. I convinced the buyer to let me cater lunch for their office, because I'm like, this is pre-COVID. So who's going to turn down a free lunch? And the next week I served lunch to everyone featuring these proteins, and then pitched it, had packaging, and they said, yeah, let's roll you out into the 9 stores. And so I was self-distributing. I still can't believe I did that. I would create all the products at a commercial kitchen, load them into a cooler, and then drive around to the 9 stores every weekend. And then, it wasn't until I started to see like the product actually moving there and the reorders keep increasing. I just remember this specific moment where my partner at the time, my husband now, was standing with me and being like, this is working. And I just couldn't believe it. And so it was that moment I think will always stand out in my memory. But that's kind of when I first realized there's something here.
So were you not self-aware of the success? Did it take someone to be like, hey, by the way, we're doing pretty good? Were you just so hyper-focused that you didn't realize how successful it was?
Yeah, I just don't think I've ever been, I'm very always cautiously optimistic. I think that's just kind of like always been more of my temperament. But yeah.
That's so funny. Now, let's go back a little bit. Has it always been Abbot's Butcher? Where did the name come from? Because your name's not Abbot. Where did that come about?
So it started as Abbot's Butcher. We're now Abbott's. We've dropped the butcher. But because I started the company when I was living on a street called Abbot Kinney in Venice. And Abbot Kinney himself was a conservationist and in Santa Monica a while back. And then the butcher part was really about us bringing quality and craftsmanship to the category. Like I said, since dropped butcher, because we're really pivoting, focused, being more of a wellness company that believes in the power of clean, plant-rich foods. to heal and transform and to energize. And so, that's why we're really just back to Abbott's now. But yeah, it all comes from my time at Abbot Kitty.
Oh, that's great. Now you built this over time and tension, but you also needed investors, and you had some bold-faced names involved in Woody Harrelson and Owen Wilson. Very random to read those names in a startup company like this, but and I know Woody Harrelson's famously a very clean eater, lives off the land, that kind of stuff. But tell me, without getting into those guys, but like in terms of getting investors involved.
Yeah, so I actually applied to be, as we started to grow, eventually got distribution, thank God, and then started to grow regionally within Southern California. And at that point, I had applied to become part of an accelerator program. And the accelerator program was in New York. It was run by a VC firm called SOSV. And so I was able to go part-time with Tony Robbins, and then part-time, I was literally commuting back and forth between LA and New York to attend this accelerator program, still be able to work for Tony, and then grow this business as well. And it was through that accelerator program I really was focused on, okay, how do I scale this now? We've got product market fit. How do I scale this? And so that was a really big focus also on like manufacturing and like finding the right co-manufacturer and the right partners to help me do that, and understanding more and more about food safety and quality. And was able to meet so many amazing people through that accelerator program, including a VC firm called New Crop, which is now called Unovis. But one of the venture partners there, Dan, was a mentor for me at the accelerator program and got to know me, the company. The company was like me at the time, but just the mission. And I think over the next year, as we continue to grow, then we focused on scaling, and that's when I raised my seed round. And they led the seed round. It was still a small round. It was under $1 million, I believe. But that allowed me to scale manufacturing and be able to launch. And we launched with food service focus. So we launched into a chain called Tender Greens, and we were their first plant protein, about 70 doors across the country. And so that was really exciting. But then COVID hit, as you know. Food service restaurants had to close. Everything changed overnight, and we pivoted pretty quickly. But at that time, very serendipitously, Whole Foods had approached us, and we then launched into Whole Foods that August during COVID.
Wow.
We really focused on the natural channel, the Whole Foods, Sprout, Fresh Time, Fresh Market, natural grocers, all of the independents, the regionals. It's been just so incredible to see our products really resonating with those customers. And that point, then we went and raised our Series A, and that's when I was introduced to Woody and Owen, who invested in RA.
So they're not dumb investors. They weren't early on the ground floor with you guys. They were like, I'm gonna wait to see how this thing works out. Like, oh, okay, this looks legit now, right?
Yeah, get out of the farmers markets. Then we'll talk.
Yeah, right. Call me then. Yeah. It's amazing. Is this plant food push that's happened over the last 10 years? Obviously people know like the Impossibles of the world, but one of the, and I'm going to play a little devil's advocate here, is one of the arguments to those, and you sort of touched upon this a little bit earlier, is that we get the idea we're not eating meats, we're eating cleaner, but we're eating stuff that's made in a lab. Like it's not, doesn't come from the earth. It's not from something that someone grew on a farm. And you kind of, and please go into how you guys do it, but like, tell me about that argument of folks that say like, yeah, I mean, I kind of like the idea of not eating meat, eating plant-based, but it's stuff that like a guy in a lab coat made. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's really a legitimate reaction to what's going on in this growing stigma around, meat analogs. It's really justified. The vast majority of the meat alternatives are made with ingredients that nobody should be eating. And so, there's always, in this beginning, it felt like this health halo around the category, where people thought, okay, yeah, I want to cut back on meat. This is not people trying to say I'm going vegan, vegetarian. They're just trying to cut back on meat a few times a week. And they're saying, oh, I'm going to make a healthy choice for myself and try one of these, meat replacements. But then, people started to look at the ingredients, and they saw a lot of these things that are incredibly inflammatory, or they're just meat. They're chemicals. They're synthetic chemicals. And they can say like, oh, it's less than 2%, but really less than 2% is all you need of a specific chemical in a formula for it to work. So we're seeing that pushback now around the category. where people are starting to, be more savvy and say, okay, I just don't want anything to do with it. I'm better off just eating meat. Okay. And so there's this ongoing debate, like what's better, meat, vegetable, right? I'm not getting into that. I'm really all about real whole food. And that's what Abbott is doing. So for us, the enemy isn't, the beyond's impossible. It's anyone doing anything with ingredients that really, really we shouldn't be eating. They're essentially poison to our body. So, for us, we use vegetables, herbs, spices. We use extra virgin olive oil and avocado oil, no canola or seed oils. We build flavors from scratch ingredients. And then we use pea protein. And pea protein is really, really clean. Soy protein isolate, that's one big challenge. I think a lot of people have confused that with just soy. And people say, oh, I just don't even want to touch soy. If you eat organic tofu or fermented soy like tempeh, it's totally fine. What you don't want to eat is soy isolate, because the way you isolate soy is you take the soybeans, which are really fatty. It's how we get soybean oil. But to take out the oil, they have to go through a process that uses a chemical solvent called hexane. It's a defatting process. And that separates the oil from the bean. And that's the carcinogen. And so there still could be trace amounts in that in your soy isolate. So that's why I say to anyone, just avoid soy isolate. You're much better off with, hemp protein, pea protein. There's plenty of others to choose from. But anyways, getting back to your original question about the challenges around the category, absolutely. I mean, they're really justified.
Now, I'm interested in trying these foods, trying Abbot. Full disclosure, I've not tried it. And it only is, I'm going to blame my wife. Because anytime we're in the grocery store, I'm like, hey, do you want to try this blank burger, or do you want to just get a hamburger? And she's like, no, I just want to get a hamburger. So hopefully she's not hearing me talk about it right now. But what do you say to folks who are just 100% like, I don't even want to try it? And again, I know it's not your role to convince people, but what do you say to folks that are just so opposed to even just the concept of a plant-based food?
I really think look, we're never trying to tell people, what to eat, what not to eat, to not eat meat. That's, not where we're coming from. We're really trying to say, this is not just like a substitute. There's actually health benefits from eating these products. Like from our new burger that I'm so excited that we're launching, which I can tell you about in a little bit. But, when we thought about this, we're like, how do we actually make this extra nutritional, like more of a nutritional powerhouse for the customer? So we packed it with like superfoods and antioxidants and omega-3s. So not only is it delicious, you're actually doing something really, really great for your body with it. And so I guess if I was like talking to your wife, I'd be like, totally still have your burger, but if you want to even just have meatless Monday, one day a week, where you're still having something where you get all that protein, you get that nice hearty bite, and you're doing something really great for your body, try this product.
Cool. All right. I'll give it a try, because I will say one time I did try to trick her. I went to Starbucks and they offered the Impossible sausage in one of their breakfast sandwiches. So I was like being nice. I go, hey, hon, I got us coffee and I got us some sandwiches. And she's like, great. And so she starts eating it and like, this doesn't taste like the regular sausage in the Yeah, I know it's the impossible. So I won't do that again, but I will try your tack. And you did mention the new burger. We're recording this just after you announced that you've teamed up with Whole Foods stores. Why is the burger the next step of Abbot's evolution?
Yeah, no, we're so excited about it. But Whole Foods came to us about a year ago and asked us what our take on a burger would be. And we didn't want to do, another there's enough Beyonds, Impossibles. There's enough meat analogs out there. There's enough veggie burgers out there. We know what the problems are with the meat analogs and the ingredient profiles. And then with the veggie burgers, they're wonderful, but often they lack protein. And, sometimes they miss on that really nice, hearty, meaty bite. So we thought, how can we take whole food ingredients, real simple ingredients, and create a delicious, meaty bite, vegetable forward. Then let's pack it with protein. Let's pack it with superfoods, antioxidants, omega-3s, and create something that is never been done before. And so that's what the whole burger is. So it has everything from mushrooms and garlic and onion and oats and cassava and chickpea, chia seeds, flax seeds, avocado oil, tomato. There's pea protein in it. There's a little smoked paprika, a little cayenne, some pepper. It's really this nice, savory, meaty bite, but just loaded with vegetables and just ingredients that are going to go into your body and just really help you thrive.
Nice. And before the burger and over these last few years, what was sort of like your flagship? Was it the chorizo one that was your kind of like your flagship item, like your kind of tentpole?
Yeah, the chorizo. The beef is also really popular. That's the one we create with porcini mushroom. And so, our goal was never to be a one-to-one swath. Like, we never wanted to make things clean. We never need it to taste like, how beef has that kind of earthy, metallic flavor. We're not trying to do that using heme. We are literally trying to create something that has a really nice bite, tons of protein, but is also full of ingredients that are going to benefit your body. And so that's why we just use like vegetables and herbs and spices to do that. So, the chorizo came about, it's, loaded with chilies, and we import a Spanish smoked paprika for it from a certain region in Spain. Has a nice smokiness. There's, we use sea salt and everything as opposed to iodized salt. There's like red wine vinegar and extra virgin olive oil in it. We layer flavors to get something that's really, really nice and savory.
Oh, that's cool. And actually, I probably should ask this, but like, how are the products in Abbott's now compared to those farmer market days? Like, what were you?
Totally different.
Totally different. Like, what did anything remain the same outside of you? Like, was there any kind of like thing that was through line that connects like the farmer market to today?
Literally the only thing that I think is, I'll say like the chorizo has a little bit of similarity to where it started, but the only common thread is just the use of real ingredients. That was it. They've evolved substantially. Sometimes I look back, especially at the packaging, that at the time I thought it was like pretty sweet. I'm like, this looks good. Look back in pictures, I'm like, I'm a little embarrassed for myself that I thought that looked good.
Oh, that's right. So your old Abbott's foods is sort of like your yearbook photo. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe I wore my hair like that.
Yeah. Just thought I was looking pretty fly when I showed up. Yeah. No.
Oh, that's awesome. So I still to this day, 20 years later, still quote my mentor all the time when I'm working with folks, consulting them on podcasts. I'm just curious, you work with Tony Robbins for a bit. Do you have any Tony Robbins nuggets that like seeped into your soul and your DNA that every once in a while you catch yourself using without even like attributing it or even thinking about, Tony had said that years ago. Is there one that stands out?
There's so much that stands out. Honestly, I learned so much my time, like 5 years working at Tony Robbins, but he is really, really big on developing products that understand like really how to solve a real problem for your customers and continuous and never-ending improvement. Now, I don't know how my ops team feels about that because I'm constantly making tweaks and always trying to figure out like how do we make it better and better and better. But that really stems from my time working for Tony, where you can talk about, you have to not fall in love with your product, you have to fall in love with your customer. And I think because I'm able to empathize with the customer, just having been through what I've been through with my health and seeing the power of food to really heal and transform lives. Like, I've been off medication now for 5 years. I've been in complete remission.
Wow.
And there's a lot of lifestyle changes to make, but I think food is something you're putting in your body every single day. And so it can truly be your poison or your medicine. And I think understanding that and wanting that so badly for our customers and being so excited when I get to speak with them and learning how our products have really changed their lives, I think it's easy for me to really be customer centric because they're the hero here. We're just, part of their journey.
That's cool. I always love to tell the story, but a couple of years ago, I interviewed Tony and I made the mistake of asking him if he ever felt imposter syndrome. And man, did he let me have it. He's like, first of all, imposter syndrome is bullshit. And then he kind of went off into doing his Tony Robbins thing. But as you probably know from working with him, he doesn't leave, the old fools gladly. Like he never lets bullshit get past him, does he?
No, because that's all, he would qualify that as like a limiting belief. And, you can be like the biggest chokehold on your business. There's still a lot of times where I catch myself and I'm like, I don't want to be the chokehold on my business. And I need to like work through a lot of these obstacles are essentially being self-imposed.
That's awesome. Well, her name is Kerry Song. She's a CEO, founder of Abbot's. It was a great conversation. And I'm the one thing that I love when I talk to entrepreneurs at this stage in their career, it's like, my God, there's like years and decades to go. This is such, I know you have a 2-year-old. You're almost like in your toddler stage of your company right now. Don't you feel?
Yeah, no, this is an exciting year. I mean, we've moved into Target a year ago. We're now in Public. We're in a lot of other restaurants and college campuses, and so it's really exciting with what's ahead.
Awesome. Thank you again, Kerry.
Thanks so much for having me.
You're welcome, and that's going to do it for another Forbes Books podcast. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify and hit subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes. You can always connect with me on X, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Joe Pardavila or on TikTok at J Pardavila. And please don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.